Welcome to Local Matters. I'm Elizabeth. Let's get started. Every year, the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce presents Local Eats Week, when participating restaurants and bakeries offer exclusive meal specials and promotions. Well, Local Eats Week is back, the takeout edition. From March 19th through the 26th, treat yourself to the wide variety of culinary offerings in our area. Support the neighborhood restaurants you love and discover a few new ones. Visit localeatsweek.com to find a list of participating eateries and the menus of the specials they're offering. Your Green Space is a new production of The Local Scene, which focuses on expert guidance on how to keep our plants and our world healthy and sustainable. Here's Erica with an excerpt from our first episode.
Blueberries are considered a superfruit, and for good reason. They're low in calories, high in nutrients and antioxidants. But have you ever wondered what it takes for this powerhouse of a fruit to make it to your plate after a harsh winter? In this episode of Your Green Space, we follow Ron Marabet of Marabet Farms as he shows us the tools of the trade and demonstrates what he does to his blueberry bushes before the spring. Let's get started.
Hi, my name is Ron Marabet. I'm a co-owner of the Marabet Farm here in Kingston, Massachusetts. So I'm going to begin with the tools of the trade. We have to have our tools. This is the first of two in which we will talk about the tools of the trade, and we'll talk about winter pruning. Okay, the second will be on springtime or later pruning when there is foliage. It's a different set of circumstances, so we're going to sort of start here and move toward that later in springtime. The tools, however, remain the same in either case, except in the springtime we will use a lighter pair of gloves. I highly recommend wearing a pair of gloves when you're pruning, but this lighter weight pair gives you good management of the branches and so on. I'm going to use them today. You know, you could cut yourself or you could do injury, especially if you're just starting out with this and your hands aren't hardened off. Okay, so that's one. And the other pair of gloves is where last week I was doing some pruning and it was pretty bitter cold, so I wore this heavier set of insulated gloves. Then we get to the hardware. This is a smaller gauge pruner, and I just tried them out. You can find them online or probably any hardware store along the way. This one is for those who might have problems with their elbow, tennis elbow. This one has a rotating lower handle. Okay, so what that does is as you squeeze, and you can cut larger branches with this, it absorbs some of the tension at the point of the cut where it clicks. So some of the energy goes into the hand and not into the elbow, where these, when that click happens and so after a day of pruning a lot of blueberries, you might find yourself with some tennis elbow. If you do, you can go and shift over to these. And I use them occasionally if I see some larger branches. You always want to keep a distance between the other plants. So these two are growing together. So you can see I'm making a little aisle for the person to pass through who wants to pick these blueberries. I'm cutting off all this dead wood. All right, so this is the part, and here's some where they're all touching. This is no good. Some healthy, this isn't such a healthy, so I'll take this right down. You can look at those canes, they have dead end. There's a little bit. These buds are the ones with the blueberries, but there's not much of the other kinds of buds. I'll show you them in a minute that with the leaves grow off of, and they produce the sugar. So you can't have too many blueberry clumps and not enough leaves, because you will have small, bitter blueberries. So the rule is that any stem that has those buds on it that's less than 3 inches long needs to be removed. Okay? So for example, look, that's less than 3 inches, right? gone. Now these have more energy. The energy that would have gone into that, counterproductive, will go up into these with these buds. So I can again see here, like that's less than 3 inches. This right here can add to the inches, right? From the stem below the branch, if there's not another one going on. So like this one right here, it's just a little over 3 inches, but I have, you start here really. You know what I mean? Okay, so, and then this one has got 3. And then this one is kind of close. And this one, I'm gonna take the one that's lowest. All right? So there's a well pruned stem, branch from the main stem. And you have to do that with every one that you're gonna keep. So now I wanna go back to the idea of removing canes. That's a big important part, and it's probably a good idea to do that first, because then you'll see what you really need to clean out. And so I'm seeing in the middle here, this is a kind of a, it's not doing too well up there like that other one we showed you over there. You notice that there's some buds on there, there's some stems, there's a lot of deadwood. Why is that? It's because this is competing in the middle. So I'm gonna go in and cut that down with the loppers, okay? You'll notice right next to it is another one. That's a new growth. Why don't we give that one a chance? So, oh, it's so good to have very sharp loppers. I hardly felt that at all.
Thanks, Erica and Ron. To watch the entire 30-minute winter pruning episode, visit the Local Scene YouTube channel and the playlist Your Green Space. We'll be sharing lots more from local experts about gardening, permaculture, and sustainable living over the coming months. So, if you're interested, stay tuned. Dining out during a pandemic is tricky for both the diner and the restaurant serving them. Towns and restaurants have had to get creative in order to provide patrons with a safe and comfortable experience, whether that means using things like outdoor heaters or even igloos. And Plymouth is no exception. Parklets on Main is a program created by Plymouth Rocks Events and the town of Plymouth to provide restaurants on Main Street with supplies needed to install outdoor areas known as parklets. Julie invited Mike Josha, Mike McCarthy, and Jordan Shabbat via Zoom to talk about this program and what it will do for local businesses. Julie?
Thank you for joining us today, Mike, and Jordan. Let's start with Mike McCarthy. You are the owner of Yankee Wood Carvers and Signs right here in downtown Plymouth, and you have designed these proposed parklets, street deck parklets. Can you tell people what they are for those who don't know about the parklets?
Well, basically it's a transition from the sidewalk onto the street that is flat and accessible with a wheelchair or people walking, so they can go out and dine on the street. I think that you should probably back up here a little bit and talk about why this came about. At the last Zoom meeting that the town put together, they were trying to see if we were going to proceed with the one-way road through town, and I strongly oppose this, along with everybody on this panel here, and so I started a Facebook campaign, and within hours I had a couple hundred people agreeing about this one-way had to stop. The two-way street through town is very beneficial for everyone in town. One-way makes no sense at all. It would close down businesses as it did back at the beginning of the pandemic. So with a little simple math, I went out to the street and figured out that these little parklets, which are used all over the nation, would be a suitable way to solve this problem, having a two-way street run through town, and also having the restaurants get back on their feet. A lot of people like myself who have businesses that aren't restaurants also need this two-way street. I mean, the people coming from the south of Plymouth would have to swing all the way around town to go to their store of choice. So these street decks will be very beneficial for all of us and help the restaurant.
Absolutely. So it's a place to allow restaurants to continue to do outside dining, but also allow the non-restaurant stores to have people be able to go visit them. Mike, Joshua, can you tell us how Plymouth Rocks Events got involved in this?
Sure. So the owners of Craft Beer Cellar, Tatum Stewart, Anthony Gallerani, approached me to be the nonprofit partner for the parklets, and I'd worked with Tatum and Anthony on Winterfest 2019. So I was happy to lend a hand, as a small nonprofit. Obviously, our 2020, as far as events go, were just wiped clean. There were none. So it's been a bit of a struggle, for a nonprofit like Plymouth Rocks Events to have any events going on. So I saw this as a great opportunity to get back and involved with the town. And, we're looking to raise as much money as possible for these parklets and to help as many restaurants as possible as the weather gets nice, as the season comes out. We're so happy to help.
Now, will these be permanent structures? Mike McCarthy, maybe you can talk about this. Are they things that are going to stay year round, or is this just for the spring, summer, fall season?
Well, correct. Yes, they have to be removed because of the snow removal that has to take place. So they can go all the way up until Thanksgiving, I guess. As soon as the snow stops, probably May. I think the town is already talking about the timeline on these. I'm actually going to be building a sample deck, which will be able to be viewed by everyone. It's going to be up by the town hall. I know that they're putting barriers in place now for this, and so that way, the restaurants can actually go down there and give their thumbs up about the whole situation here.
Perfect. That's a great idea. Now, as someone who owns a business on Main Street, how will this benefit your business, Speedwell Tavern?
Well, with coronavirus, we all saw last year outdoor dining was definitely the more recommended, safer option. We've done a lot to be safe on the inside too, but there are just certain people that are never going to feel comfortable dining inside, at least for a very long time. So we've lost tables inside due to social distancing. We've lost our bar seating. So kind of necessary at this point for us to continue to function. So with this option, without the harm of the one way, which the one way was great for that sort of emergency knee jerk. We have to do something for the restaurants, but we've had a year to kind of figure it out. We see it definitely didn't help everybody. This two-way with the parklet, something cohesive, is, I think, an awesome option.
Excellent. It is. Now, you also had somebody step up to support your parklet. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll try to do it without getting teary-eyed. So when I found out about this option, I donated right away because I think it's beneficial for everybody down here, not just my business, just for the long term. But someone else who doesn't own a restaurant stepped up, Peter Brown of Tiny & Sons Glass, to sponsor my parklet. He's everybody knows Pete in town. He's a great guy, never shies away from helping. But he picked up the bill for my parklet personally because he not only wants to benefit, the long term in downtown and all that, but he understands that if we all kind of get together on this, that long term, this is do great things for the whole town of Plymouth, and it's going to be one cohesive look. It's going to give us the ability to have outdoor seating long after COVID, when things like historical come into play, and for your regulation, if we have a one cohesive idea, this could really benefit. And you bet your butt everybody that eats at Speedwell this summer is going to know that Tiny and Sons did this for us too. So it's a great sort of example.
Right,
too.
exactly.
And he's very smart and very caring for doing that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the coordination of people and places and organizations and companies that get together. A coordination like Mike, Joshua, you and Rick Carlson of Carlson Creative collaborated to put on Winterfest, a hugely successful event in Plymouth last year. Can you talk about coordinating and consolidating and how that came to be? And can we look forward to another one this year?
Well, obviously, 2020 being blown up, everyone looking to 2021. So we have a tentative date for the next Winterfest, but obviously, like everybody else, we just kind of have to see, what it's going to be, what it's going to look like. To me, as long as we do it in some respect, that'll just show that we're moving forward and it's going to happen. And we can look beyond 2021, 2022, and really these things come together by the people of the community getting together and say we want this, and then how can we help this happen, and then really just working together. I mean, I've learned so much about Plymouth through Winterfest and working with the community and the restaurant owners and the shop owners, the politicians and town hall and the police and the fire. I mean, you really get a sense of how much people want to help and be involved, and that's great, and that's what people need. I think right now is the weather's getting nice, things are opening up, people are kind of feeling this positive vibe, and people need this. They need to be face to face again and working with each other and getting together and making these things happen. And I think, again, to bring it back to the parklets, that's just that's just another way to get people involved in downtown, especially.
Yeah, hope springs eternal. And Jordan, we had you on about 6 months ago, right kind of in the darkest time of COVID-19 for restaurants. How have things changed since then, and what is your outlook?
I just kind of got used to it. We stayed positive through this whole thing, and I get a lot of people didn't have that same luxury. It was just a new challenge every day, and we took it on. Now it is feeling a little easier. Vaccines are starting to get distributed. People are starting to come out again. We've been expanded back to our maximum capacity, social distancing included, but the town has just been incredibly supportive no matter what the obstacle is. If it's just takeout, takeout sales go up. If it's, minimal inside dining, people come in at different times. So we've been very lucky, and I hope other restaurants feel the same, that the town of Plymouth, the people of Plymouth have really backed us up through all of
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah, we have a great town here behind us. Mike McCarthy, how has the pandemic affected your business?
Since it's tax time, you kind of know it. Yeah, I'm 25% down. I'm not as bad as a restaurant could be, that's for sure. But it's only going to get better from here on out. I think we should have a really good year this year. There'll be a lot of local people that are going to be staying around town, not traveling as much. So I think that this is a win-win for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Mike, Joshua, finally, how can the community rally around and really get involved and support this parklet project? And how critical is time right now to get this done now?
Well, certainly, as things are getting nicer, we want to get restaurants on board. We want to know who wants one of these parklets. So the quicker, obviously, that we can get money in and get these projects going, the better. There's two ways that people can donate. One is just to go to GoFundMe.com and search Plymouth Parklets. It'll come that way on GoFundMe.com, or Facebook. You can go to the Plymouth Rocks Events Facebook page. We have a link to the GoFundMe. And I was just thinking, like Jordan had said, that some people may still not be comfortable with, going out to eat yet. A great way to support the restaurants without even leaving your house is to go to the fundraiser and maybe give, if you're a party of two and you would go and spend X amount of money on dinner or something like that, go to our GoFundMe and spend the money there. And technically you are helping the restaurants in very much the same way.
That's a great idea. Gentlemen, this is wonderful. Shows coordination, consolidation, and care and concern for each other and for our community. Thank you so much, Mike Joshua, Mike McCarthy, and of course, Jordan Shabbat. We adore you all, and we can't wait to see the park that's being built. So thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Julie. Let's hope we see these parklets around our downtown area soon. Wampanoag Native peoples have deep roots both in local history and to aquatic wildlife. On April 11th, join the Duxbury Free Library and local historian Sheila Lynch Bentonen for the virtual event Ancient Spring, Migrations in Duxbury Through an Archaeological Perspective, where you'll learn about the Wampanoag people's connection to herring, fishing, whaling, eels, clams, and oysters through archaeological artifacts and historical writings. The event is from 2 to 3:30. Visit the Duxbury Free Library website to learn more. Writer and speaker Randy Ross has seen the world, and now he wants to bring it to you from the comfort of your very own couch. On March 24th, join Randy and the Plymouth Public Library virtually for Tales of the Reluctant Traveler. For one unforgettable hour, you'll learn about Randy's story, what led him to take his 2007 journey, and what mischief he got himself into while he traveled to 4 continents. This one-man show is complete with readings from the author's books and a laugh-out-loud slideshow. The event begins at 7. For more information, visit the Plymouth Public Library website. Here's Keith with an all-new In Focus Snapshot.
Hi, I'm Keith Hughes, and welcome to In Focus Snapshot, where we take a look at the stories from the state and our communities that you may have missed. Thinking about the costs of college yet? A new college savings plan, the Baby Steps program, is the first universal educational savings program of its kind in Massachusetts. Launched early last year, any child born or adopted in Massachusetts on or after January 1st of 2020 will be eligible for a free $50 deposit to their college savings account. Any parent or guardian may begin this process as soon as a child is born. Those eligible receive a $50 seed deposit from the state treasurer's office into a U-Fund account with that child as the beneficiary. The $50 seed deposit can only be received within 1 year of the child's birth or adoption. For more info and to enroll, visit www.babystepssavingsplan.org. Springtime means that election season's upon us. Duxbury's up first with their town election on Saturday, March 27th. This year, the Board of Selectmen will be expanding from 3 seats to 5, and there are 3 candidates looking to fill those new positions. There's also a race with 2 candidates for 1 seat on the school committee. PAC-TV sat down virtually with each school committee candidate to find out where they stand on the issues that matter. You can watch these interviews and individual candidate statements at pactv.org/DuxburyCS. And be sure to stay tuned to PAC-TV for more information and coverage about upcoming town elections. For our legislature update, we check in with Senator Susan Moran, who has launched some initiatives for March, which is Women's History Month. Senator Moran has filed pieces of legislation related to the ongoing challenges being faced by women and our community as a whole, such as access to life-saving diagnostic tools for cancer patients, increased access to lactation care and services, and telework initiatives that encourage employers to embrace remote work from home options. Representative Matthew Muratori has been named to the House Ways and Means Committee for the 2021 to 2022 session. This committee is responsible for reviewing all legislation that would impact the state's finances and produces an annual operating budget for critical state programs and services, including local aid for the Commonwealth's 351 cities and towns. An informed citizen is an educated citizen, and the Plymouth League of Women Voters is helping to do just that. On April 1st, the League is sponsoring a virtual forum on the legislative process in Massachusetts. In addition to providing an overview of how our legislature works, there will be a panel featuring our local delegation. Moderated by former Senate President Therese Murray, Senator Susan Moran, and State Representatives Matthew Muratori, Kathy Lenatra, and Stephen Zaros, will discuss ways to advocate for the passage of bills. For more information, visit PlymouthLWV.org and check out their calendar page. Thanks for watching this edition of In Focus Snapshot. I'm Keith Hughes. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Keith. April is National Poetry Month, and the Plymouth Public Library is ready to celebrate. On April 7th, join Plymouth's Poet Laureate Stephen Delbos for Poetry for Hope and Renewal, a virtual event that celebrates the hope and renewed spirit we are all feeling as we head towards spring and more of us becoming vaccinated. This virtual event begins at 6 p.m. Visit the Plymouth Public Library website to register for your Zoom link. Yoga and movement instructor Kim O'Brien and the Duxbury Senior Center invite you to the March 26th event, Get Moving, where she'll take you through a few gentle and fun exercises that will help you feel your best. To register for this virtual program, visit the Duxbury Senior Center's website. Mark is here with an all-new In the Schools update.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So here we are, we're coming into spring, and what do we have? We have high school football. In these crazy COVID times, we're doing everything we can to help the citizens and students over at Pembroke High School to give them the utmost best football coverage we can do. So we're covering not only the freshman and JV games, but also the varsity games as well. You can check out the schedule here. Also, we'll be streaming those games on our Prime website as well. Stay tuned and watch all of the excellent football coverage that we can give you.
Thank you, Mark. On March 31st, join the Kingston Recreation Department for the Tot Egg Hunt, an in-person event where your children can wrap up a fun Easter egg hunt by taking a picture with the Easter Bunny himself. Masks are required for anyone over the age of 5. There will be 2 time slots, one at 9 a.m. and one at 10:30 a.m. To register, visit the Kingston Recreation Department website. Beth Cameron-Killbridge has been a storyteller, teacher, and musician for nearly 3 decades. Her Celtic fireside tales have entertained many organizations, including the Duxbury Senior Center. Here is a Celtic classic.
My name is Beth Cameron-Killbridge, and I have been doing storytelling for longer than I probably care to admit. It was in the mid-70s when I was an undergraduate and had spent a lot of time in Ireland and time in England. I was a student teacher in London, and I used to take a lot of trips back and forth across the Irish Sea. But I learned a lot of the stories that I was telling from children who were in school in Ireland, because as it turned out, while I was a student teacher, a fellow I was very interested in was just starting his year as a first-year teacher in Carlingford in Dundalk, County Louth. And funny enough, he's just retired. So it shows you how long ago I've been doing storytelling for an entire person's career. But what happened was that I was also taking world folklore and cultures at university. And so I learned a lot about a lot of different mythologies. And so when I would talk to universities and schools about myths, Irish myths, it would be the Ulster, Fenian, mythological, and historical cycles. And there were beautiful stories from each group. And funny enough, I never told a story about a leprechaun because I didn't like them. I didn't like leprechauns. I'm anti-leprechaun, have been for a long time. They're malicious little characters. The things they get into are never good. They're greedy, they're shoemakers, and the money that they earn from their shoes, they put into their Crocs and they bury it and they keep it and they hide it. And they're just kind of miserable little characters. So I never told leprechaun stories. For 30 years, I never told leprechaun stories. I also felt that they kind of stereotyped what Irish tales were about. And so I'd rather people see the great Cuchulainn, who was a giant, and Finn McCool, who walked across from Ireland to Scotland and back, and giants and Tuatha De Danann characters who were heroes in their own right and fought great battles. and they're beautiful people. But you got these little niggling kind of characters in the background who are making mischief all the time. You've got your banshees and your pukas and your leprechauns, and they're up to no good. So I kind of left them out of the story for a long, long time. Then I stopped doing Celtic storytelling altogether about 20 years ago. And recently, they've popped back up in my life, and I don't know how that happened, but I had to reevaluate my dislike of leprechauns and revisit them. So I spent a lot of time the past couple of weeks trying to psychoanalyze what's wrong with the leprechaun and why I didn't like them. And I came across a story, and I'm going to tell you the story, and you tell me if you like the leprechaun when I finish it. I'll leave it to you. So we have a young farmer. His name's Tom Fitzpatrick, and he's out with his cattle in the field, and he hears this tappity, 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 tappity. And he's thinking, what's the sound of that? And he starts to wander around in the field to see what's going on altogether. And he happens to look in a rather high grassy area, and he sees this wee man, this little fella, and he's wearing a big leather apron, and his hat is kind of cocked to one side, red cap. And he's little fella, and he's working on a shoe, and he's tapping this hammer into the heel of the shoe. And next to him is a huge jug, this big brown jug full of something or other. So as Tom approaches him, he starts to think, this is no little fella. This is a leprechaun. This is your one right there. So he goes over to him, and he already knows, you see, because they're very well known in the countryside, and certainly in rural areas, they're still very much believed in. And so he sees one, so he knows what it is. And he realizes that if he blinks or scares him, that he could vanish. And there's that pot of gold issue that's at hand. So he sneaks up on you, man. And as he gets closer, he makes himself heard so he doesn't frighten him. He says, excuse me, I'm after seeing that big jug. And I wondered, he says, no, didn't even introduce myself. My name is Tom. I'm down there on the farm, the cattle. Oh, he says, well, I know you, buddy. I know who you are. You're one in that cattle down there. He says, and by the way, you might want to keep an eye to them now. I think they're going near the outskirts of your property. And Tom knows that if he turns, he'll lose the leprechaun. So he keeps his eye on the little fella. And he says, well, I'm just curious now. What's that you're drinking? Oh, he says, that's called heather ale. And the invaders from Denmark, many, many years long before you were born, came and they taught the leprechauns how to make heather ale. Oh, sounds delicious. Oh, he says it is. You would never have had anything like this. Would you like to try some? Tom says, yes, I would. I'd very much like to try them. And the little fella looks at him. He said, well, he said, you might want to just take a look over your left shoulder because all your cattle are escaping. Tom says, that's enough. Grabs the little fella by the shoulders and he shakes him. He says, I've had enough of this. He says, I'm not letting you go. He says, I am up to your tricks. I know what you're trying to do. He says, and I'm going to get that pot of gold. And as he grabs the little fella, he knocks over the jug. All gone is the heather ale, down on the ground and poor. Well, Tom says to him, now, are we through with all this? Because I would like to find out where you keep your pot of gold. So the little fella says, well, then I'll take you to it. So if you're going to hold me like this, he says, I can't breathe. You've got your hands across my throat. I can't breathe. He says, well, then he says, take me to where we're going. So the leprechaun takes him over fields and bogs and down into the thickets and over all sorts of mischief and mayhem, till finally comes to a field of ragwort. And there are all these plants, miles and miles of ragwort, as far as the eye could see. And he said, my pot of gold is buried in here. Where, says Tom. I says, see that third ragwort over there, that plant right there? That's the one. He says, now you're going to have to dig pretty deep, though. Tom says, what am I going to use to dig with? Sure, I've no shovel. Well, he said, Why don't you just go back and get the shovel and I'll be here? Oh, Tom says, I'm no idiot. You're not getting rid of me that easy. So with that, Tom takes off his red garter on his sleeve. He takes off the red garter and he wraps it around that particular ragwort that he knows that the gold is underneath it, you see. And he says to the little one, he says, now, we've made a deal. That's the one you've told me. I've got my gold, my red garter around it, and I'll be coming back with my shovel, and it had better be there. Promise now you won't touch the red garter. Oh, I promise you, Farmer Tom, I'll not touch that garter. Tom runs home as fast would go, gets his shovel, and he's back in a flash. And your little man is gone, and the garter is still there. And so are thousands of other red garters around each and every ragwort plant in the field. And that's how it ends up for Tom. No pot of gold. What do you think of leprechauns?
Thank you so much, Beth, and thank you for staying with us for this episode of Local Matters. From all of us at PAC TV, have a happy and safe week. We'll see you next time.